Okay, welcome again to the session. As I mentioned, uh, we'll be doing a few things today. Number one, physical exercises, which we have just finished. A reminder: we do the exercises because it's super important to ensure that the energy flows smoothly through our bodies as and when we do the meditation, which is the main purpose of this session. So never skip them. Always try and do exercises, even if you have to cut short some other things. Don't skip them. So keep that in mind. Second, we will continue our discussion on character building. And last time we started the virtue of honesty and non-lying. Today we'll focus on self-honesty. As always, we will be referring to Master's books, but this time a bit more. And I was preparing for today. I actually was thinking more about TV series and movies and not Master Choa's books, so I had to tone that down. You'll see why. You'll see why. Okay. So the books that we will be referring to today is Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul. This is the one which we have been using for a while. Level 1 Pranic Healing book. And as always, Lotus Sutras. So we will continue on compassionate objectivity, but we will introduce another one today called Experience Being. The first one, compassionate objectivity, is focused on character building, which is what we have been talking about. And this one is on life. That the range of topics is amazing. As always, I would always recommend getting these. I'm not plugging them because I really don't know where you can buy it from. So I leave it to you guys. But these are direct quotations from Master Choa Kok Sui over various lectures all over the world. I think in a period of about 10 years or so, they were compiled, organized, and made available to the students. So that's great. If you're not ready for it right now, that's okay. We can have a general talk. As I said, I was inspired by movies also this time. So we'll begin our chat today. Today, I have a few slides. So we will be talking about honesty and non-lying, focusing on self-honesty. And I have some thoughts on why this is important and why we really need to pay attention to that. Because as you would have noticed in our sessions, we try to focus on ourselves a bit more because it is easy and convenient to focus on others almost on all times. Reminder that we are talking about self-honesty. We are not talking about judging ourselves and beating ourselves up. So that is super important to know. And the concept of self-honesty is something, let me, before that, sorry, I'm going to follow my sequence which I prepared. So bear with me. Why are we doing what we are doing? That's always important. And I think we try to remind ourselves every session. Why exactly are we talking about character building? Why is character building important at all? Because we have gathered here to do the meditation on twin hearts, and meditation brings down tremendous amount of energy into our system. And when this energy comes into our system, everything gets magnified. When I say everything, what I mean is our tendencies, the good tendencies and not so good tendencies, or the wholesome tendencies or not the unwholesome tendencies, or the yang aspect or the yin aspect. So many terminologies which have been used to describe almost similar things. But the idea is good things and positive things will get magnified, but so will the negative ones. Negative ones can then come back and make our lives difficult. And because of that, this structure or this template has been given to us to practice character building in an organized and systematic manner to ensure that when we do the meditation and things that get magnified are the good ones and we are able to get rid of the negative ones. So today at the end of it, once we talk about a few things, we'll also practice actively of how to remove these things, because that's more important than talk. I think the intention here is for us to come together and work on things, and then we can take them forward and work over the period of time on our own as well, right? So that's the most important thing. Now, why talk about self-honesty? Let's listen to Master Choa on this. We'll start with the first Lotus Sutra, Compassionate Objectivity, page number 44, if anybody is following. This is a section on honesty and non-lying, but specifically on self-honesty. Okay. So Master Choa says, you have to be honest with yourself. Self-honesty results in rapid spiritual development and humility. To progress spiritually, one must have awareness, self-honesty, and the will to transform. So three things to progress spiritually: awareness, self-honesty, and the will to transform. All three are necessary. Truth can be painful. Humility comes from accurate perception of what you are. You must know your strengths and weaknesses, your virtues and vices. Again, I would just like to highlight again, you must know your strengths and weaknesses, not just vices, but strengths and weaknesses, virtues and vices. And why should you know that? And we'll talk about that today. Practice self-honesty without excessive self-judgment. Otherwise, a disciple or people will become psychologically imbalanced. The idea of digging into ourselves is not to find flaws and focus on them. And that is super important. And that is something that we have to remember. We should remember. Hopefully by the end of the session, we would have covered a few examples of how to do that. So again, just to summarize, what Master Choa is effectively saying is practicing self-honesty is one of the most important thing for development. Now, not everybody is interested in spiritual development, and we should all be respectful about that. But if you're looking at developing as a person, if we want to say that, hey, I achieved significant growth in the last 1 year, in the last 2 years, last 3 years, on whatever parameters that we want to take, right? Self honesty is super, super important. And that's why you would come across the concept of, you know, this is, let me zoom in. Okay. Can you still see the screen? I hope. Okay. So I'm borrowing this, as you can see. The concept is not new, and concept is not new and it's not something that Master Choa introduced for the first time. He gives us practical ways of doing this thing and things that we can apply in our real lives. But the concept of knowing and understanding ourselves is very, very ancient. Now, just a disclaimer, I'm not going to go through these. I just wanted everyone to have an understanding that this comes from various cultures, whichever one you might have studied or whatever you would have been exposed to. The purpose, the intent, or the main idea of knowing yourself, know thyself, is very, very common. There are few I directly relate to, and I've deliberately put the source at the bottom that this is based on AI-based research. I haven't gone and studied Greek, Egyptian, or Hindu philosophy in details for me to come here and talk about this. But some of these concepts are familiar to me, and I'm sure a lot familiar to you as well. For me, especially the ones which come from Hinduism in India, is something I grew up with. We have been in some of the classes, Master Choa talked about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where he talked about this concept from that perspective. And these are the two things which I have myself looked at, and they're super interesting. And the reason why I'm calling them out is that whenever and again, as I said, okay, why I was talking about movies, because the first time I heard or I noticed the concept of know thyself was not through any of these, but it was when I was watching Matrix, and when the oracle in the Matrix points out know thyself at the door when she's talking to Neo. So a lot of things remind you of good things in life, and I believe you should learn from wherever you can. So that's the movie reference. I have a few more. Uh, but yeah, I think the idea there and the idea here is quite same, that for us to understand what is the right thing to do for us, it is very, very important to first know ourselves. And the concept, as I said, is quite ancient. But many times when people look at these things, and whichever philosophy you study, if you go and study from a Greek perspective, from an Egyptian perspective, if you get into Patanjali's Yoga Sutra of Swadhyaya, people tend to think that this is limited or pointing towards the spiritual aspect and talking about, okay, you need to understand yourself as a soul and not as a body. And again, if you haven't, please read this book. It gives a lot of understanding of that topic, achieving oneness with the higher soul. But that's not it. Because for most of us, and I'm sure I can put some of you in that category, having that level of understanding, that level of experience is not something that we get on a day-to-day basis. Maybe not, maybe once, maybe we haven't had that kind of experience. That doesn't mean these teachings are not for us. And this doesn't mean that everything becomes theoretical. The idea is to apply this in our real lives. So, for example, if you look at Swadhyaya or the one from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it means the word itself literally means, it translates to study of oneself. Swa means self, Adhyaya means study. So study yourself. That's it. And why is it important to study ourselves? Because that's when we will understand of what our tendencies are, what is important, what works for us, what doesn't. And whenever Master Choa talks about studying something, or in his language, the term that he uses very nicely is called accurate perception. And accurate perception consists of two things. Number one, and we'll move to that, is careful observation. And the second is correct interpretation. So when I'm talking about practicing self honesty and the step one there being careful observation of what we do, it is important to understand that. Because a lot of times, and this has happened, I'm speaking with my experience and maybe a few friends, that we are too quick to look at one quality or one tendency or one behavior of ourselves, put it into the bracket of whether it is a right or a wrong thing to do, and start working on it. No, and that is not the way to go. That is really not something that everybody should do because all of us are different. So the first emphasis is actually careful observation on yourself. Look at your own rhythms, habits, behaviors, what works, what doesn't. And I'll keep taking my own example, right? So, for example, if I talk about energy rhythms now, I want to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and do my meditations, get a walk, come back, and by 8 o'clock, have this tendency, have this feeling of achieving so many things. But there's one big problem about that is I'm not a morning person. This is never going to work out for me. So my initial tendency would be to look at myself and say, okay, I am lazy. I have a lot of laziness in my system and I need to work on that. But that's actually not a problem. If somebody wants to sit down and have a chat with me at, I don't know, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the night, I'm absolutely up for it because that's my tendency. But if I start working on laziness and I say, okay, I am lazy and that is my self-honest assessment of the situation and I just jump on it, it doesn't help. Similarly with habits. Again, you might look at yourself and say, okay, maybe I'm a quiet person. Maybe I'm somebody who talks a lot. Maybe I'm wasting too much time on social media. Maybe I'm eating too much. Whatever. You look at that tendency of yours, and what is the initial reaction? Okay, I'm excessive in everything I do. I need to practice moderation. I need to get moderation or balance in my life. So I'm going to put my phone away. I did that, by the way. I put a timer on how much Instagram I can watch in the day. Or I'm not going to eat excessively, or I'm only going to eat healthy. And I'm like, okay, great, problem solved. But is it really? The key is to dig into the details. Why exactly am I doing that? I'm talking a lot. Why am I talking a lot? Maybe because I'm feeling insecure. And I think that if I keep talking, if I keep saying things, the person in front of me may think of me as a smart person, or I will not give him time to figure out that I actually don't know anything. And I'm just very, very insecure in this situation. If I'm eating a lot and putting on weight, the problem may not be addiction to food. The problem may be stress or depression or anxiety. And maybe that is why I have picked this habit. Similarly, I mean, scrolling social media, this is something which I'm sure all of you have noticed in news as well. It's a very clear sign of somebody being lonely and depressed. And maybe that's why you're doing it. Is there anything wrong in actually using social media? Absolutely not. So what I'm trying to do is, and this is by the way just a framework in front of you, something I put together, but we can analyze and we can look at ourselves and our behaviors in all sorts of ways. And what I want to emphasize is just focus on the first step, which is careful observation. No judgments, no analysis. Let's just see, what is it that I do? How do I behave in certain situations? Whether I like it or don't like it is a very, very different matter. We all are different people. We behave differently. For example, some of us, when we get into conflicts or stress, we have a tendency of behaving in a particular manner. Some of us go quiet. Some of us come fighting. We just want to make sure we'll shout, we'll be angry, we'll do whatever we have to do, but we have to win that conflict. Or some of us, the quiet ones, are like, do whatever you have to do to make sure it goes away. I don't want to speak, I don't want to talk about it. How do we react under pressure? That's another trait of ours. And it's good to observe, some of us, we don't like pressure. Think about travel, for example. A lot of us find travel a very stressful thing. We believe the whole pressure of airport security, visas, paperwork, it can freak us out. And we behave in a particular manner. Some of us, we don't care. It doesn't matter to us. We can be at the airport 5 minutes before we are supposed to be, and we are absolutely relaxed. No stress of missing the flight. If we miss the flight, it's okay. There's another flight. What's the big deal? Worst case scenario, I'll come home. But not everybody is like that, and not everybody is stressed out as well. I mean, it's fun when you have a family, when you have two people who have two very different ways of looking at the same situation. But the key is to understand. And the reason I'm bringing it out is because once we do that, we can move to the next step. So it's actually a good idea of looking at ourselves, our behaviors, our tendency from an outside perspective. Imagine you're analyzing a friend, and I'm saying friend and not a stranger because you can do it with a bit of kindness, no judgment, and note it down. Okay, this is how I behave. Forget how you want to behave, forget how you should be behaving, but this is how I behave. Once we have done that step, we can move to the next one, which is correct interpretation. Why do I do what I do? What exactly is my motivation? So I'll take a couple of examples, right? Let's say which ones? Let's talk about people who introverts and extroverts. Maybe there are certain people who have a tendency of talking a lot, and there are certain people who are quiet at times. Now, if you look at yourself, sorry, just 1 second. Somebody's trying to get in. Okay, if we just look at ourselves and try to understand why we do what we do, and what is the underlying motivation for that, that will give us an idea. So, if you're quiet, if you're quiet in a setting, and if it is being driven by the fact that you're scared, you feel insecure, and you do not want to say anything because you believe it may show you out, people might think and judge you on something that you say, and you're simply petrified of being in a room full of people and you really, really just want to be quiet. That's one thing, that's fear driving it, or maybe low self esteem driving it. If that is the case, once you have done that analysis, you can use the tools and techniques available to you to remove that. So, and we'll probably work on fear today. You can use the techniques to remove that because it's a good observation and it is the correct interpretation that fear is driving that behavior. So let's work on that. However, if you are somebody who is quiet because you like to listen, because you are kind, compassionate, and you want others who are talking to have the stage to talk, you're curious, you want to learn from them. The behavior from the outside is exactly the same, but the motives are completely different. In that case, should you start working on, oh, maybe I'm self conscious or maybe I don't have good self esteem. So let me start working on it. It's not a useful exercise at all because you don't have that. That's not your underlying reason. So, hence, it's very, very important to correctly interpret what is it that is driving the behavior that we have, right? Another thing would be doing something. Maybe attending this session. Take the session as an example, right? Why are you here? It is very, very important to question ourselves on understanding why is it that we decided to spend 1 hour here in this session talking about these things and then doing a meditation after that. If your reason is because, hey, this is something that resonates with you, this is something that you like to do, and this is something that you believe is going to help you grow, maybe you want a different perspective on things. I don't know, maybe you like the sound of my voice. Who knows? There could be various reasons why you have turned up. At the same times, maybe it is because I should meditate. I should meditate. I haven't done anything for the 1 week. Let me just show up here because if I don't, I have nothing. Okay. Or maybe because you showed up in the last few sessions and now you think if you don't show up, then somebody will think, oh, look at that person. They dropped off. Or, you know, could be anything. Could be a promise you made to somebody in this room. I'm not sure if that's the case, but sometimes it happens that, okay, you're my buddy, so I'm going to turn up. I'm not interested. Maybe on the side, I'm just looking at my phone, checking sports or social media or whatever. But I will feel bad. I don't want to have a difficult discussion with myself or others, so I showed up. Maybe I have some level of guilt attached to that. Uh, Healings. I mean, I'm taking some good examples just to point out the fact that just because our actions are good, that doesn't mean the underlying motives are really, really good. I want to do healings. Why do you want to do healings? Because I have this guilt inside me that I should be helping other people and I'm not doing that. At the same time, it could be driven by some values which say that, okay, I have learned a skill, I can help other people. I would want to help those people. Depending on where we land, and again, no judgment. It is, well, it's impossible to not have judgment around these things, but maybe less judgment. But if you find that, you are being driven by the negative motivations, I've listed some of these. They can be a lot more. It's for us to think. If that is the case, then we act on it. And we use the tools to actually get rid of them from our system. Because if we don't do that, then it doesn't really matter. You might be doing the right thing, but the feeling won't go away. And and then you haven't grown. There is zero growth if we do that. If you're just doing the thing because we believe we need to look good in someone else's eyes, or there's a framework about what is good. Like I was talking about get up in the morning, right? This, I mean, this world is full of books which tell you that successful people wake up at 5 in the morning and do 50 things. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people. And there are a lot of people who are more successful, maybe, or equally successful, who do not follow those patterns. But if I do that, and every morning when my alarm hits and I don't get up, and the first thing I do in the morning is feel sorry for myself or feel guilty that again I did not get up at 5 a.m. It's not a good idea. That is not the right interpretation of things. That is not the right way to act. At the end of the day, you have X number of hours. I can use them the way I want to. Maybe I'll be more productive in whatever hours I'm awake, even if I don't get up at 5 a.m. It's okay. So the idea is to interpret it correctly and then act. I'll take one more example. A lot of times when we are angry, and everybody is taught, whether part of this framework in character building of loving kindness or not, but be kind, be loving, be kind, be loving, forgive others. This is something that is repeated so many times that it becomes a default reaction. And we practice forgiveness at the end of our sessions every day, and we will do that again today. So the the reaction, the default reaction could be, I'm feeling angry. I should not feel angry. I need to be loving and kind. Let me think of the person. Okay, I forgive you. Let bygones be bygones. Let's move on. Is it really helpful? Maybe it is, maybe it is not. Because we need to understand why we are being angry. So again, for that, I'm going to pick the new book, Experience Being. The master has articulated this much better than me, obviously. So there's a chapter on anger and criticism. And he says, anger is an effect. What caused the anger? How did the anger arise? Look at some of the causes of anger. And there's a bullet point list of about 12 causes of anger. Is it because of not getting your way? Frustration, lack of confidence and frustration with self, lack of understanding, fear leading to aggressiveness, disappointment, righteous indignation, unfulfilled expectations, impatience, unexpected loss, repressed emotions, pride, attachment, infringement of territory. So many of them for just one thing. What is it that we should ideally do? First step, careful observation. Observe, I am angry. Great. I mean, not a great thing, but good to observe and good to be aware of the fact that, yes, I have anger in my system. Next step, correct interpretation. Why do I have anger in my system? Spend some time. Once we do that, we will be able to identify, I am angry because of pride. I wanted to be treated in a particular manner. Maybe I wanted to be treated with respect. I did not get it the way I wanted it. Hence, I am angry. Or I am afraid. I am getting into a situation which I do not like. I don't want to be here, but somebody is pushing me there. My reaction, anger. Or I am insecure. I'm getting this happens a lot in my world, with me as well. You get into a situation where work-wise, corporate world, uh, some people may try to put you in situations where they can make you, well, they can embarrass you in one way or the other. You can see that coming. You're afraid of getting called out. What do? You lash out. You become angry. Well, one of the reactions. I've seen most people hide and just disappear and be quiet in those situations, but whatever is the reaction, that's not the main point. The point is to understand it and then work with it. Once we are able to do that, if we are able to do that, that is practicing self-honesty. So a lot of times, self-honesty, people believe I should just look at my weaknesses and address them. I should be honest about looking at my weaknesses and addressing them. That's the starting point. Understanding the reasons behind why I am behaving in a certain manner, identifying whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. If it is a good thing, we continue. In my example, for example, if getting up at 5 or not getting up at 5 a.m. is a good thing, I don't want to feel bad the whole day. I want my sleep. I would rather cut down on Netflix and get an extra hour of sleep. So that's my choice, and I should not be feeling bad about that. So that is the more important part, right? I mean, so I had two more movie references. I've skipped them. This is a serious topic. So. But when we practice self-honesty, this is the most important part. Once we understand it, next step is not to stop there. I mean, yes, it's not just information. For example, if we are acting out because we have fear in our system, we need to work on how to get rid of fear. And for that, we have a technique, and we have been given a schedule as well for that. Or if people don't remember, I'm going to go back to level one book. And again, purpose of using the books is twofold. A, we keep the teachings pure. B, we can remember that the first book that we ever bought, the first book that we ever came across, has so much knowledge and wisdom that we can apply to our real lives. Okay. How do we actually go ahead, and what are the tools available to us? There are many. One of them we are talking about is inner reflection and firm resolution. One should try to master one virtue at a time. Preferably, one should try to practice and concentrate on one virtue for about 2 months. Meditate on what you have done the whole day. You can extend it to the whole week or the whole month in relation to the virtue. Be aware of the good things you have done. This will develop self esteem. At the same time, be aware of your mistakes. This is called inner reflection. Mentally erase the negative event and imagine you are doing the right thing at least 5 times. This is called firm resolution. The mechanism behind this is that a repeated wholesome thought manifests as wholesome action. Repeated wholesome action will in the long run manifest as virtue. One should intensively practice inner reflection and firm resolution for at least 2 years. So we are a few weeks in, but we will continue. Okay, so let's do this right now. Okay, let's practice self-honesty. Okay, um, think of one good thing about yourself. Pick anything. Are you kind? Are you generous? Do you give people time? If that doesn't relate to you, okay, then how are you when it comes to pressure? Are you able to deal with pressure? Are you able to not panic? Uh, are you able to hold it together for longer than most people you see around you? Again, remember, no, everybody gets affected by pressure. It's a matter of how long you can keep it together. Think of something like this, okay? Between these two, either being kind, generous, or being strong and ability to deal with pressure, okay? Go back in the last day, the last week. Think of your life as a movie. And then get to this scene where you're being loving and kind, or you're being strong. Pause there. Just look at yourself and admire yourself. Physically, you can tap yourself on the shoulder. Okay, I did good. I was good. I like this side of me. I would like to have more of this. This part is super important because we need to keep sure that we stay balanced. Okay. Once you have done that, again, hit play on your movie, let it roll, and get to another instance where you did something that you like about yourself. Pause there. Look at that version of you. Okay, I did good. I was strong. I was kind with my words. I was humble. I had an opportunity to embarrass somebody, but I did not take it. Great. Again, appreciate yourself. Yes, I would like more of this. Okay. Tap yourself on the shoulder. it's a good idea to tap yourself. We remember the sensation of touch, so it's a little weird at first, but it's more about all senses being used. So yeah, congratulate yourself. Great. So you're a good person. I am a good person. I did good things, but I'm still human. So let's find the not so good things. Okay. Go back again to your day, to your week. Find a situation where you acted the way you don't like, a version of yourself you don't like to see. Maybe you had a difficult situation and you decided to hide. And we all do that. And we all know when we do that. So if that's the case, now replace that image with the image that you would like to see. If you're not so kind, imagine yourself being kind. See that image. How are you acting? How are you talking? How is your face? Are you smiling? Details. If you chose to hide from a difficult situation, imagine yourself being brave and facing it regardless. Good. Picture yourself doing the wholesome thing, doing the right thing. Appreciate yourself doing that. When we have time, it's a good idea to, when we put that image in front of us, to pause again and do what we talked about. That's first part, observation. Now do a correct interpretation. Why did I behave the way I behaved? And then for some of us, well, I've wondered for many years, why exactly do we do? Why we bother doing this exercise? Because what's in the past has already happened. I'm not going to go back and change it. If I've hurt somebody, I've hurt somebody. I think the answer to that is also given. Well, I don't have that quotation in front of me right now, but by doing this exercise, what we're doing is we are changing the energy pattern. And as Master actually says, that the mechanism behind this is that repeated wholesome thoughts manifest as wholesome actions. We are creating wholesome thoughts, which will then manifest as wholesome actions. So tomorrow in the future, when we are faced with the same situation, may not be the exact same situation, but a similar situation, then we will react in a different manner. If you don't be harsh on yourself. We keep doing this exercise, but over the period of time, this becomes a habit, this becomes a virtue. And that's the whole intention of doing this practice. I hope it helps. Any questions, comments on anything, any thought that comes to anybody's mind right now before we proceed to meditation?